All right, welcome everybody to tonight's Meet the Candidate Forum here in the village of Lowville. I'm Nick Altmeyer with linkinglewiscounty.com. I just wanted to open up the event, introduce tonight's moderator is going to be Julie Abbas. Julie's an independent journalist here for Lewis County in the North Country. So she does some work for Lincoln Lewis County and some work for some other outlets as well. So Julie will be moderating tonight's event. Tonight on the village election, we have three candidates running for 2 trustee seats. So we have incumbent Danny Solomon. We have Joe Austin, who is challenging the 2 incumbents. And we have Chuck Trillian, who is also an incumbent. So these are your 3 candidates for 2 positions. Village elections are on Tuesday, March 19th. Voting is from noon to 9 p.m. And we are also recording this event tonight, so this is going to be available on Lincoln Lewis County. So I'm going to step back behind the camera, run the camera work. Julie's going to take over moderating. But one last thought, just wanted to remind everybody that this year will be the first year there is a new location for voting. So many residents here in the village of Lowville are used to doing their voting right here in the big courtroom. That's not going to be the case this year. Board of Elections has a brand new office. It's right over where the DMV is on East State Street. And that is where you'll be doing your voting this year. So again, polls will be open noon to 9. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie, who's going to get the candidates started off with their opening statements.
Thanks, Nick. Everyone, thank you for coming. It's a good turnout. I'm pleased to see that. We have 2 incumbent candidates and a newbie on the block that are competing. Each will have 3 minutes to tell you about themselves and why they're running, share some insights. And we'll start with our longest running trustee to date, Mr. Dan Salmon. Can you please stand and sit however you prefer? And you will have 3 minutes.
First, I'd like to thank Julie and Nick for hosting this. As Julie said, I'm Dan Salmon. I've lived in the village since 1979, married to my lovely wife Sue of 44 years. My wife is my biggest supporter because she allows me to do all the different endeavors that I do. I've been involved in village government for 20 years. From 1995 to 2003, I was the mayor. From 2012 to the present, I've been a trustee and deputy mayor. Without your support and trust, this would have never happened, and I do appreciate that. I've always tried to support the village to the best of their interest. Being in village government requires a commitment. During my 20 years, we as a village board have been committed to the following. We upgraded the water filtration plant in the 1990s, and again just recently, with also doing ground well, as we're doing right now. We've dredged the lagoons twice, again in the 1990s, and just recently. We've been committed to the 5 Streets program, which was just done. Committed to getting $100,000 in taxes back from the county for the water filtration plant that they should have never taxed us for. We have Music in the Park, which will be starting its 4th year. We have Citizens of the Year award that we're committed to, that will be in its 4th year. 2 ideas that I did come up with, and without the village support, village board support, those wouldn't have happened. We just received a $10 million downtown revitalization grant. If elected, I will assure you that I will be, I'm on the committee right now to see the distribution of that is completed fairly. We just received a $500,000 grant for the veterans in the park where we host the music of village music in the summer. Our plans for that is with conversation with the community first, to have a walkway around it, do the drainage, have a splash pad, have a pad for dancing, and have restrooms that are automatically locked by timer. In the 20 years that I've been involved with village government, we've always kept our taxes at the tax cap rate or below. And I believe just about 2 years is the only time we've raised the taxes in those 20 years, very minimally. My personal commitment to the county is I'm past president of Lowville Lions Club. I've been 45 years as a high school football and Pop Warner official, 38 years as a district administrator of Little League Baseball, and I'm 35 years high school modified girls. If elected, I promise to continue to be actively involved in the DRI grant, and I will ask the challenging questions when they need to be asked. I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Next up, we have challenger, newcomer, but not new to the community by any stretch, Mr. Joe Austin.
Well, good evening. I would also like to thank Nick and Julie for putting this on for us. I think it's really important to have that openness with the community, especially in these small town elections, because it's, in my opinion, these elections are the most important we can do, because it's local people doing local funding and local things like that. As you heard, my name is Joe Austin. For those who don't know me, I have lived, with the exception of 2 semesters in college, I have lived in Lowville my entire life. I always say that I've lived within 2 square miles, actually. Someday I'm going to actually do the math, but I would imagine it's about the same 2 square miles I've lived in my entire life. I was born and raised here. I chose to stay here. I chose to raise my family here. I'm currently married. We're going on 15 years this year. We have 2 children who are currently attending Lowville Academy. And I chose to raise my family here because I really do have a love for this community. After high school, I graduated in 2005. I did go on to college. I spent a few semesters bouncing around to different colleges. I ended up with 2 associate degrees from Jefferson Community College, one in mathematics and one in business administration. I then continued online schooling, which got me a bachelor's degree in emergency management and fire science. I've really had a passion for the emergency services. If any of you who know me, it leads me into my next thing. In 2007, I was asked if I wanted to join the Lowville Fire Department, which my father was a member of and still is. I joined not knowing what I was doing, but it really, I can say it changed my life. I have grown to love the fire service. I've worked hard at training. I've grown up through the ranks, and for the last 5 years, I've been chief of the fire department here in Lowville. So, for employment, I currently work at Lewis County Public Health. I've been there since 2015. I started out as an account clerk. I worked my way up to what was called the public health planner. Under that was the emergency preparedness coordinator, which served through COVID. So I was the emergency preparedness coordinator through COVID for the health department for this county. And I'm currently, since April of 2022, I have been serving as their fiscal manager. So I'm a numbers person. I enjoy numbers. And so if elected, I really would work, I enjoy budgets, I enjoy working with budgets. And with the DRI, which has been mentioned, I would like to see how it will affect us financially, how it's going to benefit this village, how it's going to do things like that. And I really think the next 4 years are going to be very important for this village. That's one of the reasons I'm asking for your vote. I'm really just out there to give you guys an option. It's nothing, I have nothing bad to say about this village. I've enjoyed being part of it, and I ask for your vote next Tuesday.
Thank you, Joe.
Let's go fast. I hope it does.
Chuck Turley, would you like to take your turn?
Yes, I will. Good evening, folks. I'm Chuck Turlian, formerly Charles, but I do call Chuck. I'm a retired business owner in the village, and that gives me time to spend as a trustee, because there's a lot of things go on during the day that somebody that works a full-time job might not be able to be involved with. And I have no hidden agendas. Being retired, the only one I have to answer to is my best supporter, my lovely wife of almost 49 years, Marcia. I'm a life member of the Elks, exempt member of the fire department, and belong to the Sons of American Legion. Married again to my wife Marcia for almost 49 years, had 2 children. I have an associate degree from SUNY Canton, and I was in the business program at SUNY Utica. Dan already hit a lot of our high points of the things that we have accomplished in the village, and I like to use the word we, because it's a group effort. We're all involved in it, and you know, until you're in a position like this, you don't realize the big difference between municipal and private business. I mean, they're two totally different things. You can take business classes all you want in college, but until you're in a municipality, dealing with those kind of budgets, they're totally different than private. As Dan said, we've upgraded our water system with 2 new wells, and we're actually planning on 2 more new wells. Right now we've got enough to suffice the needs of craft and whatever else the village has, but if things go in the future, the 2 new wells that we're planning on in the next couple of years will only add to that, which I think maybe even the town might be involved in that, so I've heard. They might want to expand some of their water districts, and I think it's a good deal. We replaced the street lights in the village with LED lights. I think that's a good thing. As Dan mentioned, the $10 million grant for downtown revitalization, the thing that people need to know, and I think this is a good time to say it, is that the village itself doesn't administer that program. A lot of it comes down from the state, as with a lot of grants. It comes from the state and federal government, so we have input, but we really don't make the final decision on a lot of that. Again, I've been a 50-year resident of Lowville. I was born here but didn't grow up here. We moved up north by Messina when my mom and my dad went to work for the Seaway, building on the Seaway, so that's where we were. But believe me, you can ask my sister on this one. We traveled back and forth from by Messina to Lowville to my grandparents almost every weekend for over 30 years. And that was something. It really was, back and forth. So we actually had 2 families and 2 sets of friends. I had friends in Lowville, and I had friends up north. So this is who I am, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. All right, now, before I start asking questions, does anybody in the audience today have any questions you'd like to ask the candidates? No? All right, that's fine. What I'd like to start with, to hear from each of you, a lot has been accomplished in the last especially 5 to 10 years here in the village, but what do each of you believe needs to be done? The incumbents, certainly you've done a lot while you've been on the board and a lot has happened, but what else needs to be done? What hasn't been accomplished yet, or what do you see as the future way forward for Lowville? This time we will start with Chuck.
Okay. Well, I think, as is the case with all across the United States, all the infrastructure it will need upgrading at certain times. But the thing to bear in mind is, as Joe can attest, and Dan, when you're working within budgets and grants, sometimes you have to take a little breather from things and let some bond issues and things catch up. So, sometimes things have to be on the back burner a little bit. And so I think we're kind of planning on taking a little break from major projects over the next year or 2 to let things simmer down. But as I say, we're still going to try for 2 new wells and bring that on. And I would like to continue as funding is available. And that's the big thing, funding when it comes available, because you never know. You never know which way the state and federal government's going to swing on these grants and things. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Joe, want to have a go?
Sure. Well, as the newcomer, I have been attending the village board meetings for the last 5 years as the fire department's representative, so I do know a little bit what's been going on. And I think the village has done a phenomenal job of keeping up with the infrastructure, with the fact that our water system is 100+ years old and still working. I still get water at my house, I still get sewer at my house, and that's been because the village all along has seen those upgrades and has saw them through. I do think moving forward, yes, we've got to keep that infrastructure in mind. We have to figure out how we can do it. Grant money, funding, stuff like that. Yeah, it's important to look for that stuff because that's what's going to allow us to move forward without putting the burden on the taxpayers. With that being said, other things I'd love to see, just different, our police force currently is working understaffed, and I know that has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the fact that not a lot of people want to be a police officer right now, but throwing whatever support we can put behind them so we can get that back up to a full service is one of the things I'd like to work on, so.
Thank you, Joe. Dan?
Infrastructure is always aging from day one on. Our infrastructure right now in the village is probably the best it's been in 50 years. Right now, I think we need to upgrade some of our streets. Our streets are better than most. We need to fine tune what we've got in place. We've got excellent DPW, and I see our superintendent is here, Paul Dinez. We have a new police chief, Daryl Ortliff, who's out on the streets as an acting police chief, which I think is great. And we have a new clerk, Brittany Vanette, who seems to be doing well. As we move forward, I like what Charlie said, we need to take a breather to a certain extent and fine tune again what we have. I'm committed to do that. I'm committed to ask the tough questions that need to be asked, whether it's within the house or outside the house. And I believe the experience that I have gained with your trust in voting for me for over 20 years has allowed me to learn, if by accident, what municipalities are all about. And I've been proud to serve you. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Beyond infrastructure, what other things do you think the village board can do or spearhead to help develop the village, whether it's economic development, social development, because there's a brain drain going on. We know this, it's not just here, it's everywhere. We don't have enough lawyers, we struggle to get doctors. This is the county seat, and it is by far the largest village and town or most populated in the county. What can be done? What ideas do you have of how to combat brain drain and to attract more people as get a population moving up, which helps your tax base and infrastructure projects, instead of just the continuing decline? This time we'll start with Chuck. No, you got first last time. Joe, it's your turn to go first. He gave me the eyebrows for those of you.
Yeah, so taking infrastructure out of the game, whatever else there is, there's still a price tag with it. There's still how do we do it? How do we look forward to it? How do we make the village appealing to people? I know a lot of people like to say tourism, which tourism is a great business if you can make it work. However, retention is more important. Get people to stay here and then the area will start to thrive. Do I know how to do that? Other than looking at my own life, which again, I lived here, I grew up here, I loved it here. Why did I stay here? I was lucky enough, I found work right along the way. I was lucky enough to get a job. I worked at McDonald's to begin with. I was lucky enough to work for a local family-run business well, I still technically work for them, but I worked for them for full-time for about 8 years before I took the job with the county. But again, trying to figure out how we can make that work, making it appealing so people stay here is what we need to look forward to. Thank you.
Dan.
Julie mentioned brain drain. In this community, 3 of my 4 children live here, and all 7 of my grandchildren. I consider myself an extremely lucky person. To a certain extent, this community is what it is. And what we have and what we're going to continue to keep is what we need to concentrate on. We're industry, and we're going to be industry. This community is very, very lucky that we have AMF, Craft, the hospital, NIMI, and others. Why is that? Because as a village, we have made sure that we have a good infrastructure. People will say our infrastructure is less than desirable. No, our infrastructure is better than most. We pump out 1.5 million gallons of water a day, of which Craft uses 800,000. If you have never seen our water filtration plant, I'd love to have you see it. But as far as this community, it's going to be what you want to make it, and I don't think we should strive for things that we can't obtain. And tourism is just a small play in the scheme of things. Thank you.
Chuck, give me the eyebrows.
Thanks. One of my major things that I'd like to see happen over the next few years, and I really mean this, is I'd like to see better cooperation between the county, the town, and the village. I mean, with this DRI coming on board, I don't want to beat the DRI thing to death tonight, because that's not the point. But I mean, that has the potential to drive some stuff around the village, if it's done correctly. There's going to be a committee, planning committee, and a subcommittee for it, to my knowledge. And maybe some things good can come out of that. Again, with the help of the county and the town. I mean, it's all a group effort. That's why I like to say we, not I. That's about it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Following on that topic, because my next question was going to be regarding the relationship between the county and the village, which has had its moments of stress, let's say. There has been tension between the village and the county at times. How do you all see that as far as, should there be more cooperation? Chuck, you just spoke to that specifically for the DRI. Let's broaden it out and talk in general, because there's been many things that have upset the village board that the county does, and the county side the same. They've reached out on some things and the village hasn't been receptive. So do you think it's important to maybe come together with the county and employ those resources, or how do you see that relationship and its importance? Dan, we'll start with you this time.
Transparency is extremely important. I don't like surprises. I believe that we need to have something where if you throw something at me today and say, I've got to make a decision today, my answer is going to be no. Give me time to think about it, and it may be yes. We've had some challenges with the county, and we've had some good things with the county. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm not afraid to ask tough questions. I'll be the first one to work very cooperatively with you, but I will also challenge you if I feel that it's not in the best interest of the village, because you're the taxpayers and I represent you. I represent the village within its confines. That's what you elect me for. So I've been here for 20 years. You've elected me. I've gained the experience, and I apparently have gained some trust because I've been elected many times. And I would like to continue with that. So thank you.
Thank you. Chuck, do you want to expand on what you already said, or do you feel like you've said it? It's either way for you.
Well, just a couple more things, actually. I was fortunate enough to get to the Board of Legislators meeting this last week, and that was a good experience. We've got some new legislators that I think are on the right track to make things happen in this county now for the benefit of all of us, and that's going to be fun to watch over the next couple of years, how the new legislators that we do have work with everybody. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Chuck. Mr. Austin.
So the short answer is yes, they work better with each other. I mean, that's a given in anything. You should always be working well with your partners and make what you need to happen to work. The question is how you do that with what we are given. Start with communication. We need to communicate a little better. I do know our current village legislator has been attending the village meetings, which I think has been a phenomenal thing. I think that having him there is a good chance to bridge some of that gap that was there beforehand. I think things like that is what need to happen. Ultimately, the village board serves the village residents. So yes, we do need to do what's best for the village residents. If that's working in cooperation with the county, yes. If that's raising the tough questions, yes. If that's making sure the answers we want are answered before we vote on something, most definitely, yes. I do agree that things shouldn't happen last minute. They should be communicated ahead of time, and it shouldn't surprise anyone when the topic is brought up. So.
Thank you. I touched upon development maybe as a way of to attract people to come, but let's talk more specifically about development. What role, if any, should the village have in encouraging small businesses? There's been a flourish of small businesses opening through Naturally Lewis programs and various grants, and they're established. I mean, downtown is full and thriving, which is fantastic. But is there something the village government can do to foster that, to encourage, to participate a bit more in the economic development of downtown? Nobody's looking at me like they want to go next. Dan, let's go with you.
Right. Downtown business is thriving right now. That is a given. The role of government is health, safety, and welfare. That's the three roles of government. So what I mean by that is we provide good, fair codes, good, fair law enforcement, and we have the hospital, which is a great facility for a community of 3,000 and a county of 26,000. Other than that, if we do those things, we're going to have what we want in this community. And downtown right now is probably nicer than it's been in 20 years. So I think government has to be careful and how they go about it, but what they need to do is provide health, safety, and welfare. And that's the role of government in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
So I think the village has done a good job between, and when I say the village in this aspect, I'm talking about the planning department, the codes department, the zoning department. I think they've done a good job in the past helping these small businesses, whether it was changing a zoning law or changing a code or whatever it needed to happen. I may not be using the terminology right, but and I think that type of stuff is what the village board has the power or authority to do, is to help regulate that so it's easier for the small business to come into a place, even if they want to start a business out of their home. You can't necessarily do that in some places if it's zoned residential only type of thing. So whatever we need to do, it's again goes back to that communication. If people are communicating with us that, hey, there's a need, then we can look into it and see what we need to do to make it happen, if it can happen on our end. Maybe it has nothing to do with what we need to do, but maybe we can get them connected to the right people. And again, that comes back to those relationships with our community entities.
Thank you, Chuck?
To reiterate and be the last one in line answering, I do think communication is one of the biggest things. You know, that's what we have village board meetings for, is for people to come in and communicate. Some people, you know, a number of people come and say things, but it's important to know what the village needs. We probably need some more parking somewhere somehow. With the thing that's going on now with electric vehicles, that's going to be a big thing in the future, because I don't think it's going to go away. You know, figure out how and where to put charging stations and how to monitor the charging stations. You know, I've been told that the little studying that I've done on it is that you can regulate how much they cost, how much you charge for them, and sometimes you can even have them free. So I mean, you can use that as a point to bring people in here, have, you know, a free charging station on a weekend or when an event is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. I feel like you peeked at my notes because you're hitting on all my questions, your answers, before I get to them.
But then I can't answer them.
Well, you can, you just have to do it twice. So let's expand on, you mentioned one problem that has been plaguing the village forever, and you can only do so much logistically, but let's talk about parking. Parking has been brought up at meetings immemorial. It often comes up. And you've done a lot. You have the parking in the middle of the village, but is there anything else? There's been street parking drama. There's constant complaints from one or the other. Do any of you have opinions or ideas about how to get proactive instead of just reactive when 1 or 2 residents or 5 residents come to bring an issue? Is there anything you can do about parking? Do you have ideas? We're going to start with you, Joe.
Thought you might.
Look the other way there.
No, I'm good. Yeah, so parking is definitely something that is a topic that needs to be addressed. Well, addressed isn't a good word. Discussed is a much better word to describe the parking situation. One thing I would like to at least emphasize is, so I get to go away on business trips or things like that from time to time, and guess what? When you leave little old Lowville, parking isn't free. When you go anywhere else in the world, you got to pay for it, which is a very unknown thing to us Lowvillians people. So I do think that the parking we have is definitely a blessing to our residents. They have the option to park. Can there be more? Sure, I'm sure there has to be able to be more, but Are all of our parking lots full? No. So it's one of those, how do we manage it? How do we look forward with it? And with that definitely comes community engagement. And like Charlie was saying, those village board meetings, we gotta have people at them. Like, I'm going over my time, but there's just no one at those meetings unless there's a really important topic. And this is one of those topics, so come and give your opinions.
Thank you. Actually, Chuck, we're going to go with you next because you had to go last time.
And I just reiterate what Joe was saying. I mean, I don't know how to, I just think we need more community involvement in things. And linking Lewis County is a good thing to get the point across. I mean, if people take advantage of looking that over, they know what's coming up, they know what a schedule is. I think that's very good for people to be aware of what's going on in a village, and you can plan for it then.
Thanks, Chuck. Dan?
What community doesn't have problems with parking? It's a hot topic, whether it's Lowville, Watertown, Boonville. Lowville's parking, I think, is pretty good for what we have. I think everybody would like to think that they're going to get the space they want. Our parking is equal to everybody on a first come, first served basis. It doesn't mean the school, the county, or whatever. It's whoever gets that parking space within the confines of the laws that we have. Some are 2 hours, some are what have you. We're pretty consolidated, so creating more parking is going to be an issue. The only thing I can think of is if we start shuttling people from the fairgrounds. And if you think parking is bad in Lowville, which I don't think it really is, you can go to a city where you're going to walk blocks just to get to where you got to go. Somebody asked me once, and I jokingly said, how would you solve parking in Lowville? And I says, put a parking space next to everybody's desk. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next I'd like to talk a little bit about the wave of the future that's here, which is renewable infrastructure, whether it's solar, the electric charging stations. It isn't the future anymore, it's happening even in municipalities here. Denmark is putting in solar panels. Is there anything like that, in addition to the charging stations, which both the county and the village have been discussing? Is there anything else that the village of Lowville might start considering to embrace the future? Chuck, we'll start with you.
Well, this has been a topic in some of our meetings, but we're such a confined area, there isn't really much that we can do with solar panels. I mean, there isn't a spot in the village really big enough to put a big solar field, other than maybe on rooftops of some buildings. And I don't see where you could put windmills in the village. So, you know, we're kind of limited with the space that we have as to what we can do, in my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry, Dan, you can go next.
Okay.
John hit the nail on the head.
That's our trouble here.
We don't have space. But as a county and as a village, we can have the ears of what's going on. And I think if you look within the county, we have lots of solar panels. We have windmills. So maybe not so much as Lowville because we're confined, but as a county, I think we're ahead of the game. And I know everybody says, well, we should have municipal power. That power goes into the grid, and that grid comes back to us. And so by having that, your power rates are lower. Municipal power is a whole other animal that right now I don't know that I have much knowledge in, but I'm willing to have somebody come in and talk to us about municipal power, which to this point really hasn't been done. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Joe, you're up.
So I think obviously what they have said is extremely important. And it is true. It's coming whether we want it to or not. It's going to come. I'm going to talk from the fire department standpoint at this point, though, which a week ago I wouldn't have been able to do. But yesterday there was a fire department that responded to their first solar panel fire. There was nothing. The fire department has very little it can do in those situations until it goes outside of the fence, basically, of the solar farm. But what I want to take from that is we need, as a community, as the municipal part of it, the village board part of it, yes, we need to look into this stuff, but we need to do it at a slow enough pace that all of this stuff gets taken into account. how can your emergency services respond to such things? What's it going to do when we have issues like that? What can we do to prepare our emergency responders? What can we do to prepare the safety people? The safety aspect of it. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. We spoke about infrastructure with regard to like sewers and water. Complete Streets is part of the DRI application, and the Complete Streets program, for those that don't know, are about making a village more walkable, better sidewalks, shorter intersections, especially with an elderly population, making it benches where it makes sense so people could just be in the street and relax, organizing places for outdoor eating, things like this. And part of that is in the DRI application, and it's been a topic in the village for a long time. What are each of your thoughts on Complete Streets-like projects? DRI aside, just what you think about those types of projects. Dan, let's go with you.
Okay. We have sidewalks that are in good shape. We have sidewalks that are in mediocre shape, and we have sidewalks that are in bad shape. Can we get grants to fix all the sidewalks? We've done some, and we can continue to do more. I'm a strong proponent of good sidewalks because we have a lot of walkers in this community, both adults and children. And a lot of times, because there's not certain places that have sidewalks because for whatever reason years ago, codes didn't put them in, so people have to be in the street. Other than moving forward and getting grants, which Mr. Beagle has worked very, very hard at doing, it's going to be an issue, and it will continue to be an issue. And again, it's like parking. Every community has problems with infrastructure and sidewalks because nobody has perfect sidewalks. Ours are better than they were, and they need a lot more improvement. So that's what I'll have to say about that.
So yes, walking in the village is extremely, it's a topic that we definitely would need to address. The comment was made, I think, before we started tonight that when someone was driving down here, they couldn't believe the amount of people that were outside walking, doing whatever. So I am one of those. My family and I like to get out and walk. We have 2 new dogs. They're little puppies that we like to walk even, and as they grow, they'll walk further with us.
Carry dog bags.
Yeah, we do, and we carry their dog bags. We take care of that too. With that being said, the reality is we live in a community that we're a 4-season outside people. Even in the middle of wintertime, I see people out walking and running. Even, I don't know why. I'm not one of them. I'm not a runner, but I do see it. So how can we make that better? Yes, we definitely need to address it, but it's an expensive topic. It's not cheap, as they've alluded to. It's going to come from doing research, getting grant monies, and then managing that grant money appropriately.
Thanks, Joe. Chuck?
And I think many of you probably don't know that we do have a sidewalk program in the village already. That we fund the concrete part of the sidewalk, but not the labor part of the sidewalk. And that should help, but once again, it's communication and community support. You know, we need people to come to the meetings, find stuff like this out, and take advantage of it, because it is a program that we have, and we'd all like to see it used more. Thank you.
Thank you. Similarly, a project that has been on, it's controversial as a county-wide thing, but it's been something that's been a positive topic in the village for some time, is the section of rail heading out towards the education center being turned into a trail, especially the section in the village for a walking trail or potentially rail bikes were at one time mentioned, but it is part of the DRI. So we don't need to talk about the money part, guys. I know that's a crutch when you're answering a question, but it's about the actual idea, the utility for the village, the benefits for the people that live here, or the potential harms. So let's look at it, not the grants, because it's part of the DRI, like Complete Streets, but let's talk about that for a second. Chuck, you go first on this one.
Okay. I'm not against anything of the sort for recreation, walking through the village, trails, this and that, but I like community involvement. And if the community says they want something, that's fine. If the community says they don't want something, that's what should be heard. it should be up to the people of the community to have a say in that. And that's what I believe. It's a good idea for some, for some people. I like the idea. Not everybody likes the idea, but it should be a majority of the people in the area. If you like something, you like it, it gets done. If you don't like it, it shouldn't get done. It's kind of that simple.
Joe?
Not to mirror what Charlie said, but yeah, it is important to get the people's opinion on it. I know from my own stance, from where I've been out and about talking to people, like Julia said, in the village, it actually seems like the idea of a walking trail is a good idea. I've gotten a lot of people who have said they would really like a walking trail. Again, discussing from what we discussed earlier with the sidewalks and stuff, it gives them a flat surface to walk on, a safe place to walk on. How do we make it safe? That's the next part. So what do we have to do? Do we put up trail cameras or video surveillance type stuff to assist the police department in monitoring this? Will it cost the police department more to monitor it? Probably. I know we're not supposed to talk about money, but money still comes into that, and not from the grant side of it. So from the village side, how do we address the fears that people do have or the concerns that they do have with the issue itself? If it is a hot topic, which I think it is. But like I said, from the people I've talked to, I really think the idea of a walking trail is good. It's the cost that they don't like, and that's what we would have to address.
Thank you. There you go.
First, I'll address the walking trail. I guess it depends on where it is and who has it and where it goes.
To clarify, it's on the railroad. This is the rail trail we're talking about.
Well, I think we're putting the cart in front of the horse, because until somebody owns that land other than the railroad, which isn't there right now, too much time has been spent on that. I feel that walking trail through there needs to be what the community wants. I truly believe that 3 legislators lost their seat because a lot of the people were against the rails to trails. Within the village, I have a concern, even though the county has said it will not be for ATVs and what have you. I know one legislator, when we didn't support the letter, made a phone call, and I know that there's in favor of snowmobiles and ATVs, so we have to do what's right for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. All right, speaking of controversial topics, while we're on them, let's talk about homeless housing. There was discussion about putting homeless housing here. It's been benched for further study for now. Do you think it's needed? And if so, since this is the population hub of the county and it's where most of the services are, this is where it was considered. But what do you think? Do you think it's needed? Do you think it's appropriate to have it in the village? Don't just talk about the money, because that would come from grant funding, and the county would cooperate on that, as you know. So let's talk about this. Joe, let's start with you on this one.
I don't know if I can get through it without talking about money.
You're going to have to try. Talk big picture at this point.
So the reality is, I mean, right now, I would say there's a little bit of a housing crisis. That's kind of like that anywhere. So how do we deal with that? How do we, the reason we have homeless people, which we do have in this area, in case anyone knows, I did do a little research, and we're averaging, in January, we actually had, the count was 8 homeless people in Lewis County. So it is something that we do have to address. How do we address it? I know there was talk of a 24-hour supported location where they would house them, per se. What does that look like? I don't know. It would have to come from those powers that be. Do I think the village board needs to be involved? Most definitely. This may hurt me in the long run, but do I think it should be in the village? Yes. Do I know where? Absolutely not. And that's where I think it really will take some elaboration with the community members to figure out how we can address those fears and concerns that they have with that type of facility. But yes, I do think it should be here because of the services in the village. Thank you.
Well, this isn't just a problem for Lowville or Lewis County. I mean, this is a problem across the country. It should be viewed as such, and if you know, if we need to take care of homeless people in our county, we need to. But I'm sure everybody's going to say, not in my backyard. I don't want this near me. This and that. Well, somebody will have to make a determination sooner or later if we're going to take care of homeless people, and if we are, where it'll have to be. I mean, and again, it should take community involvement. I mean, people just don't want somebody building a shelter right next to their house. So it's up to the community and the power, like Joe says, the powers that be, to figure out where to put something like that. Not necessarily just fund it, but where to put it.
Thank you. Yeah.
We talked about communication. So there's been a lot of talk of where the homeless shelter is going to be within the village. And certain people have said they've communicated well with the village. Our superintendent of the public works sitting here tonight, and he will tell you that very little, if any, communication has been done with him. But yeah, if you're going to put it in the village, you got to know water, sewer, and where it's going to be built, codes, and none of that has happened. If Mr. Dennis is here, and if he wants to correct me, he can. So I'm all in favor of communication, but communicate with us, especially if it's going to be in the village. Communicate with us, and that's why I will and continue to ask the tough questions, and that's one of the tough questions. And to this date, as far as I know, nobody's communicating with us, and that has got to change. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, my last question before we come to all of you, so be thinking, is what ideas do you have to improve quality of life? For example, you've got in the works a splash pad for the park and that $500,000 grant, but that's one, and you always have to be planning for years in advance, so brainstorming is always there. So I'm sure you all have lots of ideas, because you live here, of what things could potentially improve the quality of life. I'm tapping your creativity here, boys. What have you got? Dan, let's start with you.
I think we've got a lot of what we need right now for quality of life. You got to take advantage of what you have before you expand on it. We have an ice skating rink, we have a summer rec program, we have music in the park, we have anything that you want. We have youth activities. I'm a district administrator of Little League Baseball. We have Little League Baseball, we have soccer for the kids. So sometimes when we say we need to create more opportunities, I'm saying, how come some of the opportunities that we have aren't enough? We've just created a pickleball court that JD has worked hard at. We're going to put in a new chiller in the skating rink. And, you know, I hear from people outside of Lowville that say, wow, you guys have got a lot. We appreciate your ice skating rink. We appreciate your summer rec program. Can we do more? Yeah, but it's like anything else. How much more can we do? And do we take advantage of what we have? And then you got to ask yourself, is it a want or is it a need? Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Chuck.
I think one of the big things up here is we all steal each other's thunder. And, you know, it's kind of hard to add too awful much to it. And Dan is right, but we have a nice fairgrounds that could probably be utilized more. And again, all the other facilities that we have in the village. Maybe we need to look outside the village a little bit for some activities. You know, hiking, this, that.
Why is it always us?
Yeah. So, you know, again, it's community communication and support. That's what needs to be.
Thanks, Chuck. Joe.
I mean, they've touched on a lot of things that we've had. They've touched on a lot of things that we do, and I think they're all very important. They do improve the quality of life. How do we look at it further? Again, community input is the best thing that we can do. If elected, there's only 5 people on that board representing the village of Lowville. If you guys don't come and give us your opinions and give us your statements and give us your ideas, those 5 people get to make those choices, whether you like them or not. That's how it works. So that's why we really need that community input. How do we do it? Look, moving forward, maybe get some community groups together. Get some groups, people who want to be on some sort of committee type thing where we can research different things, figure things out. I do know, again, not we're alluding to the money part of downtown revitalization, but when you make your downtown look nice, people want to be there. And that's like when you go to different cities and places and you find that it's nice to walk around there, look around at what the buildings look like, look around at what the streets look like. And I think, as again, they've alluded to, our DPW guys do a great job keeping this place looking nice. And I'm getting to wrap it up, so here I go. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
You're gonna swell up the next.
All right,
All right.
Lovellians, does anyone have any questions
I want
for
the
these
palm
gentlemen?
driveway.
Come on, can't make me go.
You're already gonna get yourself in trouble.
Nothing? Well then, I just want to thank you all very much for coming and for the candidates for tolerating my barrage of questions. It's a great village and clearly they're all proud to be here and so are you. And we appreciate very much you coming and thank you to Nick for holding this and serving the community so well. Just a reminder, the polling station has changed. So it'll be at the new elections department down by the DMV. So don't show up here because you'll be alone. And if there's no more questions, I think that wraps it up for tonight. Yeah, Nick?
Closings,
Oh,
closing statements for
good
each
point.
candidate if they want
Sorry,
to.
each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. And since we started with Dan, we're going to start with Chuck this time.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I'd like to see more, as we talked about earlier, I'd like to see more participation at our board meetings. As Joe said, and Dan said, you know, we're a small board, there's only 5 of us. We need community input to help us with some decisions and things like that. I try to have an open ear and an open mind, and we don't have all the answers all the time, but one thing I will say is that when somebody brings something up to me, I try my darndest to find out what it is and get back to them. Case in point, somebody asked me a while back, what is the Lowville Housing Authority? And whoa, boy, that one caught me. Didn't have a clue. But I did. I checked into it within a day or two, found out what it is. I didn't know it. It was a board that was brought together so that they could build Valley View. They couldn't get the funding to build that place without a housing authority board. And so then I called that person up and I told them what I found out. And that's what I stand for. I try to do the best I can, and we're only 5 people. Thanks.
Thank you, Chuck. Joe, your closing statement, please.
Yes, again, I'd like to reiterate, thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate it. I want to thank the listeners who are going to listen to this later and then ask their questions via the internet world. That's okay too. If I see them, I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. Yeah, I really just want to emphasize again, this election is your guys' election. It's the village election. It's the smallest election you can do that will appropriate funds that are your guys' funds. It's your taxes, the board makes the decisions, but it's you guys who pick us and choose us, and I would just offer that I am a numbers person. I enjoy doing budgets, and if you ask my wife, she'll say she can't ever find my spreadsheet that I keep all of our finances on, but I always tell her where it is in case something happens to me because she'll need it. But I'm a spreadsheet person. I'm a numbers person. Again, thank you for coming out here. I just would encourage everyone to vote. No matter who you're supporting, get out there next Tuesday from noon to 9 and vote, because this is your election. It's your village, and ultimately it's going to be your board that's deciding the decisions for the next 4 years. Thank you.
I'll reiterate what the other 2 have said. Thank you for your commitment for coming out tonight. Thank you for commitment to the village. You've entrusted me with 20 years. And by luck or accident, I think I understand municipal law. You are the owners and the boss. We've just interviewed for a job, in my eyes. You have to determine which 2 you want to see serve for the next 4 years. I can promise you, if elected, I will continue to work very hard for the village, and I always ask myself, when something comes up, what's best for the village. Not what's best for me, or Joe, or Charlie. What's best for the village. And if it's best for us, then it's a double win. But we live in a community where the decisions have to be made for the village, okay? And so that's what I've always done. And I've committed 24 years. And there's one person in this room that I'd like to thank, because without her support, and she's here tonight, is my wife, Sue. She has allowed me to do this amongst other things that I enjoy doing. Football officiating, Little League baseball, and girls officiating of high school basketball. And I was a past member of the Lions Club, and I enjoyed that very much when I was a member of that. So I am committed to community. I'll do the best I can, and I'm very proud that all 7 of my grandchildren and 3 of my 4 children live here, and they all have wonderful jobs. And who could ask for more than that? You've got a great village. So yes, get out and vote, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And thank you all for being here. Enjoy the lovely balmy evening for a march. And please don't be shy about approaching the candidates if you have questions you have directly. Thank you, everyone.